I-140 is?
Right. So the first step in an employer sponsoring a nurse for a green card, and in fact, let me just back up a minute, because I'm sure a lot of you have had friends that have immigrated through their jobs, and you know that most of your friends, the employer had to advertise the job, show that they couldn't find a qualified American. It's called PERM, and you go through the Labor Department for a few months to do that. Two jobs left on the list that are exempt from PERM, and fortunately one of them is RN. The other one is a physical therapist.
Okay.
So these people, those two occupations have been designated as shortage occupations in the U.S. So we totally skip that advertising job, which employers are very glad that they don't have to put these ads in the paper. So what they filed, the first thing is called a visa petition. It's the immigration form I-140, and they show that they have a qualifying job, that they're going to pay the foreign nurse at the prevailing wage. They can't pay less than what they pay the American nurses, and that the nurse does have the degree and is licensed. And there's other things we can talk about that don't go to the I-140, but they go to the green card stage, something called the visa screen and English test and so on.
Okay. All right, so that's helpful information about the I-140. In terms of the green card processing, before we get to the actual process and how the adjustment of status green card and the consulate green card differs, maybe we can just talk a little bit about, if you are a Filipino and you have not been sponsored before, can you go for the green card? If you are an Indian nurse and you have not been sponsored before, can you go for the green card? Because
right,
we know the answer, but I want you to maybe
sure.
share that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there is one advantage to being sponsored before, is that if you have an approved I-140 from years ago and somehow didn't come to the U.S., or you were on a waiting list and now that employer doesn't want you anymore, what you do is you have the new employer file an I-140 for you, and we say you can, the legal term, you can recapture the old priority date. So instead of waiting in line for 18 months or for an Indian nurse 10 years, you might be able to really shorten it up by using the old priority date. And we've done that numerous times.
Yeah. We have thousands of nurses that we've helped with previous priority dates that had priority dates from before retrogression, were abandoned by their employers at that time because they couldn't get into the US, and then came through now at this time. In fact, that nurse I was just telling you about was one who has a previous priority date. So just to clarify and make sure everybody gets that. So basically what you're saying is that if you are a country other than born, and it's all about where you're born, correct?
Exactly.
So if you're born in a country other than India, Philippines, and China, you can file a new green card petition, no problem, correct?
Right. There's no backlog.
There's no backlog, so it's current.
Yes.
Okay. If you are born in the Philippines, you can do a new petition now, okay? It will take probably about, like, I think about, they said about 15 months.
It's more like 18 right
okay,
now, yeah.
So 15 to 18 months. And every month we will get a new visa bulletin coming out, and maybe that's a topic we can talk about next week.
Right.
About the visa bulletin.
If I can mention one thing, it's no money or sales involved, but for 23 years, I think I've driven my wife crazy because I come out with a monthly newsletter, and the most read part of that newsletter is the visa bulletin, because there's 4.5 million people waiting for their dates. So if you go on our website on Shusterman.com and just scroll down a little and look on the right side, you can sign up for a free copy of our newsletter, and so you can keep up with the priority dates, how long it's taking.
So Khalid asked, what is meant by priority date? Priority date means that you had a previous petition that where the case was maybe abandoned, maybe at the time of retrogression, and what Carl is saying is we can recapture that date.
But the actual term priority date for a nurse is the date that the Immigration Service receives that I-140 petition, even if it's the first time you're doing that.
But is it when they receive it, or isn't it when they approve?
No, when they receive it.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought it was when
they can
approve.
don't
Okay.
yeah, if your hospital or your healthcare provider employer files an I-140, no reason to sweat if it takes 6 months to approve, because it's the date that they filed it that determines when you're going to be able to come to the U.S., not how long it takes to approve it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thanks for clarifying that. So just to go back to the countries that are in backlog. So Philippines, we spoke about. China, there is a longer backlog.
Yes.
How long, if you were to find a new Chinese petition right now, how long would that take?
Well, I would say 5 to 10 years.
Okay. So that's a long time. And then India, I think, is the longest, right?
Yeah, India, what you have to realize is that when you look at the priority dates and you look at India, and maybe, I'm not looking at it right this second, but maybe the EB3 category is 2008. So you think, well, we're in 2018 now, so it's a 10-year backlog. That's not what it means. It means if you filed in 2008, you'll get the green card in 2018. But it's much longer because there's so many people who filed their petitions between 2008 and 2018 that it could literally take a lifetime to get a green card.
Yeah. Because it's not just nurses. I mean, it's all
yes,
specialists. And there's a lot of IT.
Right. It's because there's no quotas on the H-1B visas for there is an overall cap of 85,000. But if everybody was from India or everybody was from the Philippines, it wouldn't matter. But then when they go from H-1B to green cards, then no country can have over 7% of the total.
Okay.
So then it becomes just a nightmare for a lot of people. I do want to mention one thing, because sometimes people don't understand it. I have YouTube videos about this, but it's called cross-chargeability. So let's say you're from India, but your spouse is from Sri Lanka, but you're the nurse or you're the IT person. You can use your spouse's country of birth instead of your country of birth. It's called cross-chargeability. And instead of waiting 20 years to get a green card, you can probably get it in 18 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.